This is Tessa Hospod from the University of Connecticut. Today we're going to talk about autonomous mowing and her research with that and the findings which I saw over the wintertime at an event that Connecticut holds, the Connecticut Groundskeepers Association. It really hit home because I have clients that have seen the transformation in having these mowers out there. Before we go deep into that, good morning, Tessa. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Good. So fill us in a little bit about who you are and what you do. I got the short end of it and the long end in the conference, which was great. So I really got to see who you are and what you do. So please dive into that.
Yeah, sure. I'll give a little bit of background about myself. I am from Connecticut. I am a master's student at the University of Connecticut right now. I got my bachelor's from there last May. I graduated with a bachelor's in environmental science. And I've been in Connecticut my whole life. I've always had an interest in the green industry and plants, even in high school, taking environmental science classes. That's actually why I got my bachelor's in that. I worked at a greenhouse for 5 years. That was actually my first job in high school. So that's really what sparked my interest in overall just plant science, I would say. Took that kind of broader background with my undergrad. And then I started working for Dr. Jason Henderson, who's actually at the University of Connecticut. He's in the plant science and landscape architecture department. I just wanted a part-time summer job just to get kind of my foot in the door with research at UConn. Saw he had a job posting and started working there actually back my sophomore year of college. So didn't know anything about the turfgrass industry, didn't know it existed. Started working for him under his graduate student at the time. And really kind of, that's where my curiosity started sparking curiosity in the industry, like the research I was doing, but at that time wasn't going to change my major to something else as I was graduating the following year. And then when the opportunity for graduate school came up with Dr. Henderson, I obviously took it because I was really glad to work with him over the past several years. And he had a project on autonomous mowing, which is something that is of great interest in this industry at the current moment. And I kind of jumped at that opportunity, started that last fall, and here I am today. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and kind of where I've come from and where I am today. But
So before I dive deep into your educational past,
sure.
you mentioned quickly, and we're going to talk in depth about the autonomous mowers. That research is kind of your baby?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Okay, good,
Yes.
good. So I can really
Yeah.
pick your brain with that. So you said you're from Connecticut. Whereabouts did you grow up?
I'm from Hanover, Connecticut. So that's the Norwich, northeastern kind of corner of
Hmm.
Connecticut. But
And
not
then what greenhouse did you work at?
Hart's Greenhouse in Norwich.
Not familiar with it, but
This side of Connecticut, they have a couple different store locations, but not
awesome.
too far from me, right down the road. Yep.
So now, as a research graduate, what do your duties? What is the workload of that, and what's the end result of being a research graduate?
Sure. So my program, I'm doing my master's. It's going to be in plant science. That's kind of the overall arching degree, and then which is really unique because you get to pick a different concentration and research project based on kind of your major advisor within that department. Our department's kind of very wide and has a lot of different options in that aspect.
Hmm.
So this is my first year. The course load you take every semester, you take a different couple of classes. Some of us are teaching assistants, which I was this past fall. I teach an introduction to soils class. So that's another responsibility I have. I really do enjoy it, but it definitely is a lot of work when it comes to grading and so forth. But I really like connecting with the students. It's nice to just bounce ideas off of students that are, my age, a little bit younger, and kind of help them discover what they want to do in the next step. So that's teaching assistants. Some of us are teaching assistants, and then all of us are research assistants. And we have different responsibilities to work on our master's thesis research project, and then other different kind of duties as our advisor is needed. So the job is very broad. It kind of varies from season to season, as you would expect. Obviously, during the summer, we're out in the field almost every day collecting data, working on our projects. And then when it comes to winter, more focusing on our courses, either whether it be teaching. I did take a heavy course load this past year. And then over the winter, analyzing our data, prepping for the next year, and then going to conferences, which was something that I really enjoyed this past winter. But that's kind of a broad overview of the different kind of things that a graduate research assistant entails.
So when you're in your research and in the teaching aspect of it, are you teaching in front of a large group? So you mentioned going and speaking at some speaking engagements. How
Yeah.
comfortable were you up on stage?
If you asked me that question about a year ago, I probably would have said I would never do that. Absolutely
Okay.
not, because I used to be very intimidated of public speaking, but I think that really changed now that I've found something that I'm really passionate about, which
Yeah.
is, autonomous mowing, but overall turfgrass research. I think about a year ago, that's kind of when I started with more kind of that engagement in speaking. My advisor Dr. Henderson has been really great in encouraging me and giving me those opportunities to go speak somewhere. He brings me along to all these conferences. And then I think really doing the teaching, it's a smaller group I do teach a lab section for the introduction to soil science, only about 15 students. But even then, I think that really helped build my
Yeah.
confidence. And now it's kind of just natural. I don't really mind it at all.
So I've been saying this for many, many years, at least 10 years. You're a female in a traditionally more male biased
Mhm.
business. And
Yes.
I've always said that the female in the green industry would be a wonderful partnership just because of your attention to detail, compassion you typically carry.
Hmm.
Most women are a little longer fused than some of us males are, let's say. Um, how do you feel about that? And what do you see in the student population that's coming in to learn this degree?
I would definitely say, as you have mentioned, it's definitely more male dominated, but I think I've seen, at least from personal experience, kind of a more shift with the younger generation. I've seen more young females like myself become more interested. And I've also really tried to make it my, ultimate goal to encourage, maybe freshmen and sophomores in these gen ed classes, give them a little
Yeah.
bit insight into my job, and maybe it will spark that interest. Other students that either work at the research facility that I work at, or just, in my department, I really try to kind of connect with them and encourage them that this is really an option. And I think that's important to do.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you might not even know that's an option. So I try to kind of be that source of kind of,
I love it. I
yeah,
think there's so much opportunity out there, more than the 9 to 5, going to an office, going to a cubicle, that
definitely.
you can make a wonderful living at. And like you said, once you have a passion in it, it doesn't really become a job anymore.
No, definitely not. I love what I'm doing. Even when I'm going to school, it almost doesn't feel like I'm really going to school. It just feels like it's fun. It really is.
How long will this process take before you get your master's?
I will be done next May, so I have just less than a year, but
And
yeah.
what's your future after that, you think?
So definitely a job in the green turfgrass industry for sure. I'm really open to a lot of different things. I think there's a lot of opportunity, depending, where you live. I'm really open to going anywhere. I do like where I live right now, and
Hmm.
New England is, beautiful, and Connecticut is gorgeous. But I really want to kind of put myself out there, take any opportunity that kind of comes my way. And my overall goal is really this next year to kind of network and continue to connect with professionals, and hopefully get a job at the end of all of this.
Awesome.
Definitely in the turfgrass industry. And even to be more specific, I would really like to continue working with autonomous mowers, because that's really become my
Hint,
specialty over
hint,
the
hint. All the
past
people
years.
listening out there, yep, we've got a lot of companies that be listening to this. And we're going to talk about that quickly. So I just
Sure.
want to give everyone a precursor. Now that Tess and I actually started putting some stuff on recording, knowing her education and what's behind that she can offer us as resources, I'm hoping that we can have her on multiple times on other topics.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. Of
as we
course.
talked off air, and we're going to talk real quick about it right now. Right now, in the New England cool areas, actually from really Jersey up to New York, we're going through a very wet, cool period of kind of almost the end of spring, which is weird. So unusual compared to even last year, as dry as we are. And
Hmm.
with all those conditions, what are you getting complaints or information about right now?
That would be red thread.
Everywhere.
I'm sure others can attest to that, but I would say last week, after we got, maybe it was the week before, heavy rains, I couldn't get out and mow for, a few days. I go out in the field, it's it's a complete outbreak. It's crazy everywhere.
So, in your professional opinion,
Hmm.
what would be the best remedy for that? Now, when we're doing residential turf, we typically aren't back on turf, but every 5 to 6 weeks, and that's
Yes.
this spring could have been a little bit harder because of the rain delays that we have.
Yep.
Um, everyone wants to throw nutrition onto that, or nitrogen onto that source, which is good, and help push and grow that through. But I'd
Mhm.
rather hear from someone that's much more educated than me, other than just being out in the turf, of what your recommendations are to help maybe prevent if possible and to shorten this and get it corrected as quick as possible.
Yeah, sure, of course. I can give my, I guess, professional opinion on that. This is again not the right opinion. There's no right, I guess, how to, but this is, what I would do. I guess from, the couple of years that I've experienced, and I'm going to tie this into the autonomous mowing project because,
I love it.
again, that's a disease that I've seen over the past, 3 years. We've gotten some good data on it. Around this time each year, we have, again, red thread is, what we're talking about. But I think it all comes down to consistently maintaining a healthy stand of turf, right? If we're doing those consistent cultural practices, mowing is the first one. We just want to start there. Preventative measures, I think, are really where you want to start. Even in Connecticut, where, on school rounds, you can't apply pesticides. So I
Mhm.
don't want to automatically direct people to let's put those sprays out. Let's do fungicide treatment. I think it really all starts to maintaining those, essential cultural practices of healthy turf. And then looking at the autonomous mowing project, we have our autonomous mowers going out every day, compared to most residential properties may only be mowing once, twice a week. And what I will say, so far, we've had 2 years of consistent data collection on the red thread on a couple of different species. Is there significantly less red thread outbreak on those autonomously mowed areas than those areas that are mowed conventionally? And again, they're being mowed consistently every single day, so it's helping maintain that 1/3 rule.
Mhm.
Um, Not having, periods where we can't get out there and mow when it's raining, like today or the past week. I couldn't get out there and mow, so that really kind of strains the turf when you can't consistently maintain that 1/3 rule. Um, but I will say there definitely is less, I guess, disease outbreak when you're in the autonomous areas that have that consistent mowing. I guess that's only like looking at it in a mowing aspect. I don't know if that, answers your question, but I don't know if I can
I
elaborate on that for you.
No, I think that's really the key to it. So why are we seeing so much red thread? And from my experience, and it's exactly what you said, right now, even, and this is being recorded at the end of May, it's unusual to have the growth spurt that we're having this late in the season with the
Yeah.
amount of water, the lack of sunlight. So we have chlorosis in there, but then the weekly mowers are coming in, and people aren't going to want to pay to have a mow twice a week. So they're going to come
Yeah.
in and take 2 to 3 inches of that turf down.
Yeah.
One, it's going to show you the lower canopy that you typically wouldn't see if you had the taller stand of turf.
Yep.
And then it's taking that stress. It's no different than cutting your nail extremely short, and that soreness that you have, you've just stressed that plant the same way. So now, like, your finger is sore, and now whenever you bang it on something, you feel it. Well, the grass is kind of the same way. So yes, I think mowing right now is very important, and I all I do is drive around and look at my clients because I'm in a very route dense area, so I see
Yeah.
lawn to lawn, and I can see it from day to day, and I can tell when mowing guys are coming. I'm like, man, it's gonna look like hell when they're done because they're gonna
Yep.
come in and take 3 inches off. Because why? It's Memorial
Yeah.
Day weekend, and they want to have picnics and
Exactly.
parties,
Yeah.
and and we really have 3 days of shade coming. So I am not a proponent of going out and doing any fungicides on red thread. I mean,
Yep.
maybe in a rare instance if something crazy is going on, but we're just an indicative cycle right now of having red thread, sunlight, growth period. Give it some nutrition if you're going to be back on that property. It
Mhm.
will push through. It's typically not detrimental.
Yeah, and kind of to elaborate on that as well, with kind of consistently mowing with the autonomous mowers, you have the option to mow every day. Is I think the recovery I see with areas that are mowed autonomously is a whole lot greater than with the conventional areas. You're only mowing once a week. I think you go out there and mow and you cut it down and it looks terrible.
Hmm.
Versus some of the areas that maybe they're at a higher height of cut, we mow them every day, and I think the grow out actually looks better. Say a week after an outbreak or 2 weeks later, I think the recovery is better. I haven't quite put a finger on, what's the mechanism behind it, but there's definitely benefits to mowing continuously every day with them and helping that disease proponent of it.
So without any further ado, autonomous mowing. And this is why we originally met, but now I get to pick your brain and I can't wait to pick it some more. But I was extremely perplexed, and your presentation was very, very good.
Thank
I go
you.
to seminars all winter long. I've been doing this, like I told you, almost 40 years. I obviously keep current up for CUs on my license, but I love to learn, and I
Yes.
believe in the future of this industry. And I've watched it transpire from what it was to what it is, and where I see it
Sure.
coming actually very quickly. And that is autonomous mowers. And if people don't know what that is, those are basically robotic mowers or Zumba vacuum cleaners on your lawn.
Yes.
Explain really what they are. And, I got to see pictures of your turf, and I'm sure this summer you guys are going to be presenting those, right, during Turf Days up there?
Yes, we don't have our field day event. That was last summer. We do that every other year, but we do
Got it.
have a school IPM workshop. So for those listeners that may be in charge of school grounds, in the state or out of the state, we have a school IPM workshop where we'll be showcasing the
Awesome.
mowers. So definitely some opportunities to learn more information about them. But yeah.
So, what are these autonomous mowers that you speak of?
So autonomous mowers, kind of how the name sounds, they're robotic lawn mowers. They vary in size, and different kind of technological features based on manufacturer. There's a lot of
Mhm.
manufacturers, as I'm sure you can attest to, that have entered the market over the past several years. And sometimes it's hard to decipher, what are the differences between them, what might be better with one versus the other. They have different height of cut capabilities, different, again, technological features. Some of them have buried boundary wires that you could set up on a property. And some use GPS technology, which is kind of the newer thing that a lot of commercial landscapers, golf courses, and then sports turf managers are kind of leaning on, as you can more easily make changes to a property once you set your mower up with those kind of boundary points when you kind of come and install them, versus burying a wire underground and then having maybe to rip it up when you do a renovation at your course or at a sports field, or even a residential lawn. But essentially, they're small robots that are mowing your lawn for you, in simple terms.
Now, are you on your test plots? Are you using a barrier wire or using the GPS technology?
We're using the GPS technology. Yep.
Awesome. And again, I've been researching this because I'm literally going to be deploying one in my yard. But I also have
Oh,
a
that's
couple of
great.
clients that I've reached out to that are very interested in having them deployed. And I think it can be a whole separate market for this new wave of coming of. I know one guy that I'm talking with that's thinking of having one unit and do three different yards in his neighborhood and just move
Mhm.
it because he has the
Yeah.
convenience to do that.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
and just move it 3 times a week, and it's all quiet, and he can charge the same as he would be regular mowing. He just has to go in and weed whack and blow and spend his time doing detail work instead of the mowing itself.
Oh, that's great. So he has
And
one mower and he's going to have three, I guess, three different lawns he's
yep,
doing.
all in one neighborhood that he
Oh,
mows
that's
them,
great.
and he mows a ton of them. But these three people are very keen on the idea of having them on it, because maybe they have a Tesla, maybe they have
Yeah.
electric car or solar
Yeah.
panels, and they just want to continue with that whole
Mm-hmm.
green movement, which is awesome. And what I've seen and why I reached out to you after the conference was I have 3 customers that deployed them themselves, and in 1 year, one of them specifically, when I leave my house and I drive out of this road, I can only go to the end and go right or left, and his yard is right in front. And it always would drive me crazy because it was his wife's escape to go out with little kids when
Hmm.
he came home and mow the lawn.
Yeah.
And man, she could cut some hay. Grass would be flying, and she was just had her work tunes on, and that was her release. And I get it. I
Yeah.
can appreciate that.
Yeah.
But then he's actually a drone pilot. He's a licensed drone pilot that does stuff all across the country, which is cool. And so he's really into technology. And all of a sudden, I see this little white robot in his lawn one day as I'm driving by. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens. And he's cutting it at 2 3/4 inches, which I don't recommend. I really don't. He has irrigation. It
Mhm.
always was a troubled lawn just because of his habits of mowing from tall to short, tall to short, tall to short.
Yep. Yeah.
And his lawn turned around by the end of the summer. Like, I've told him on the notes that I leave, I'm like, this isn't me. I've
It's
changed
your mower.
zero inputs. I've no difference. The weather's actually worse than it was the year before. It literally was the lack of stress that was being put onto the turf.
Yeah.
Direct correlation. Easy. So now we have 3 customers with him, and I did a little video of one that was a still that was on his yard, and it's out there mowing, and I'm dodging it while I'm doing my application, which was awesome. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. And his lawn looks great. It's mowed extremely short again, and he has no red thread. Just so you know.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, it all comes down to that healthy maintenance of turf. Like the
Right.
mowing is a simple cultural practice, but if routinely doing it versus a homeowner who some people don't go out for 2 weeks and mow their lawn and then they, scalp it all down
Right.
and then that doesn't help anything. And there's only so much you can control.
So I know you brought a bunch of goodies and slides and all that stuff, and unfortunately, something on my end, we couldn't do this on a Zoom. We're on
Mhm.
a different broadcasting where I can't bring those up. So that just is an awesome opportunity to have you back on again.
Yeah, no
But I want
worries.
you to talk about some of your clinical data that you found, because this is not just make believe. This is what's so cool about what you did, and why it really rang my bell was you have hard written, studied, research data that no one can contest.
Yes,
And
exactly.
it was about fertility inputs being reduced, fungicide reduction, less stress on the plant, the whole 9 yards. And then you get into the whole cool part of, some of these mowers, as I've been researching them, you can have them deploy at night, so you never even see them mow your lawn.
Exactly.
It
Yes.
never
That's another
affects you
option now.
whatsoever. And
Yeah.
they're whisper quiet. There's,
Yes.
with everyone working from home now, or however your lifestyle is, you don't have that 26 horsepower gas power mower ripping by your windows as you're trying to do a Zoom
Yes.
call with Tessa from
Yeah.
Yukon, and it's
Yeah.
causing all this crazy noise.
Exactly.
I love it. And
Yeah.
it's not that, everyone's like, oh, you're earthy, crunchy, or whatever. But why not take advantage of some amazing technology? We did it with cell phones. We did it with
Yeah.
GPS in our cars.
Mhm.
Why are people so afraid of this? I've been running battery. I told you this before we record. I have battery backpack blowers, battery handheld blowers on my machines. My truck, I carry 600 gallons of liquid material nutrition. It's
Mhm.
nutrition. I make very sustainable product out there. And that's all done with electric pumps off of a Jackery solar generator, battery backup that runs off of the inverter off of the truck. I also have backup solar to charge it. That charges all my batteries that are in there. I've been doing that for years, and I've kind of been not really talked about, but now when we have people like you bringing hard data in on how this battery powered, autonomous, no one needs to be involved, comes out there, and how much it's going to save us. And there is a new market for people out there. I really see that this is going to be huge. So yeah, let's just go back to some of the hard data you talked about with
Yeah, sure.
reduction in fertility, which is
Mhm.
huge.
Yes, I can share a little bit about that study. I can give a little background if you
Yeah,
don't
please
mind.
do. No, I would love it.
Yeah, so we have one of our studies, it's part of my master's thesis project, looking at mowing regime and fertility inputs. So we have autonomous mowing regime, which mows in the daytime, and autonomous mower that mows at nighttime, because again, with that noise reduction,
Hmm.
you do have that option to mow at night. And then we just have a simple conventionally mowed area, which we mow with the SCAG, which most, as you know, landscape contractors utilize, or homeowners for that conventional area. And then another proponent of this study is fertility inputs. So we have 3 fertility levels within those kind of mowing regimes. And again, I have pictures, and maybe for next time I'd be able to share those,
Oh,
because I
we're
know.
definitely gonna do that, because
Sure.
this all, and this is what drew me in when you started showing me data up on the screen, not just a speech. It was like, okay,
Yeah, I
this is
think
actual real
pictures are
stuff.
very helpful. So maybe I can share those in the future, but we have that kind of laid out at our research farm at UConn. So going back to the fertility levels, we have a no fertility level. They receive no treatment throughout the growing season or year. They're just mow only within those regimes. And then we have a low fertility level, which is a 2 pounds of nitrogen per year, and then a high fertility level, which is that 4 pounds per year. And we split those between spring and fall, so which is like about early May and then late September, depending on year. So that's kind of how that study is laid out. That study actually started back in 2022. So this is 2025 now, year 3 of the
Right.
study. So it's going to be going on for a while. So it's kind of nice to see kind of the transition from where it started. It's definitely come a long way. If you asked me about it in the beginning, kind of the challenges we started with the study, kind of to now, it's definitely come a long way. But to give a little bit of background, I guess, how it all started, because again, we just don't make up these research projects just to do research. There has to be a purpose. And I think really the important thing about research is to help you professionals in the industry. We're just not doing it to do it. Like, we want to help you gather that data so that you're able to, say, incorporate it into your business model, maybe share that data with those customers, or kind of make better, decisions. As I shared my data in that presentation you saw, it's just not made up. So
Mhm.
that's kind of why we do the research. My advisor, Dr. Henderson, had a gentleman approach him from actually a landscaping company who was utilizing the autonomous mower. So this was, quite a few years ago, so not as many people were at that time. He was seeing great results from his customers. They really liked, as you were saying, with the couple of people that that are utilizing them, they see great results. The customers like them, but they really couldn't put a finger on why the changes that were occurring in the turf quality or the mowing quality were occurring. And they kind of wanted that data to be able to back up kind of what they were seeing. So that's how we got our study started. We were able to get funding from the New England Regional Turfgrass Foundation. So they've been supporting us to do this type of research. And we started the study up in 2022. They got the mowers running, I think it was maybe midsummer, and started operating in random trajectories. So that's kind of the first thing I want to hit on before we jump into the whole fertility thing, is the difference between random and systematic trajectories. Are you familiar with either or?
I am not.
So I guess I could explain it for you and for the listeners,
Please.
just so everyone's on the same page. So kind of a few years ago, this is probably like 5 years ago now when our study started, we had the mowers operating in a random trajectory over the kind of the research area. So what this means essentially is the mowers would go out, say in our selected plot area, which is, it's a little bit under an acre, kind of each kind of regime. It would go out and it would bounce around like a Roomba vacuum in that area. So it would mow the whole area, but it wouldn't really necessarily start in the same place and have that nice kind of pattern that we see with conventional mowing. You don't see someone go out in their lawn and kind of just bounce around with their mower. They're going to mow in a pattern.
Right.
But not with these mowers back then. They mowed in a random trajectory. So they just bounce around. And I wasn't overall impressed. I will be completely honest and transparent. When I started working on the project, I was like, these things are kind of annoying. You would go out and try to collect data, or you'd maybe want to do a fertility treatment, and they would just simply just get in the way because you couldn't really predict where they were going to go mow next. But the next year we were able to switch over to systematic trajectories, in which those is your mower goes out, it has a selected start point, it mows in a pattern. So say you want to mow north-south, the next week you want to switch to east-west, or even have those diagonal patterns, you're able to do that. I will definitely say there's an increase in just visual quality looking at the turf. I can, again, this is where the pictures would play. I could kind of share with you guys. But there is that difference in visual quality. It just looks nicer. I mean, this is, as a turf professional, I know I can say I like that nice striping you see on a lawn or a sports field. I mean, even people who aren't in this industry, they like to see that. So I just think the visual aesthetic of switching those trajectories, and also it also saved time. I mean, when we first started the study, it would take them like over 2 hours to kind of bounce around their area, give or take. And now I think it takes maybe just under an hour. So those are kind of some system changes we've gone through, I guess, with the study. And then if you want to talk about fertility next, I can share a little bit about that. Okay. Let's see.
Oh,
Can you see it?
that is beautiful. All right, let's pretend like nothing happened. We're going to edit back in. So now, since we have such a brilliant lady in the field, she got our sharing going on the system, which I'm excited about, because this is what I saw, and this is what really drew me into the research.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just take a ride from here. This is wonderful.
Sure. So, okay, we'll skip back a little bit. This is the fertility study that I was talking about. So just for everyone, I guess, viewing this on YouTube, you share this on YouTube as well, would really be great for this episode, so you can see these pictures. I know for me, at least, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So kind of to jump back into what we were talking about, our first area right here, this is at the UConn Plant Science Research Farm where we're conducting this research. We have our autonomous daytime regime. You might be able to see in the corner there, you see the little mower. That is our first autonomous mower. It mows this complete area. Our second regime is our conventional, kind of in here, and then kind of in the background we have our nighttime mower, which is also an auto mower. It mows at 3 a.m. every night. So I have never seen it mow, but I come in every morning and there it is. The field is already mowed. I do know that the mowers have lights on them that I think light up at night. So if you ever go to the farm, I guess at 3 a.m., you'll see that mower out mowing. So again, jumping back to the fertility treatments. So within these regimes, this was from our field day. We had the plots painted up really nice. We have our fertility treatments kind of replicated 5 times and nested within those regimes. So just to kind of point out to the far left corner left here in the autonomous daytime regime, this is our no fertility treatment. You can obviously kind of see that there was nothing done there. And then the second one, kind of our second box here, is our low fertility, just to give an example, and then the high fertility treatment right there. And then jumping over to the conventional area, I believe in this one, this was our low fertility kind of on the right here. And then the middle was our no fertility and our high fertility. But what I do want to point out, now that we can share these pictures and share my screen, it's kind of with the naked eye, even at ground level, you can see this is, I don't know if you can see this, Kevin, on your end, but the fertility treatment's really popping in those autonomously mowed areas. Not something that we can see as much in the conventional. It's a little bit more difficult to pick out, which treatment was kind of which in each block. Which kind of leads me, maybe I have another picture here, which is, you can kind of see it even better.
Yeah.
So,
And here's let me just interject real quick, because so like as a turf manager, a lot of us will change our inputs based on season, temperature, all that stuff,
yes.
and we think we have data because we use that, it works good. But
Yeah.
you guys on the university level are so specific of what you use and reuse and the amounts used to get
Yes.
your legit data compared to us. We're looking for customer satisfaction, but we think
Yeah.
we have data, but our data is just basically, yeah, it looks better than it did, so that worked really well, but we don't know
Yes.
why.
Yes. So yes, we can go out there and we can look at the plots. We can say, wow, that looks a lot better than, say, the other conventional area. But yes, we do have that data to back it up. I just want to flip. So this is, I kind of, I guess it zoomed in more. I'm going to flip through these pictures real quick. I go back to this one. So kind of, I can go over kind of what data we've been collecting in this study and kind of some really key
Absolutely.
takeaways that I think kind of go back to that visual difference you can see in turf grass quality between the autonomous and conventional areas. So again, as anyone in turfgrass research does, we collect turfgrass quality ratings. We do those every month where you go out as an assessor and you do a 1 to 9 rating on the turf. These are kind of a standard visual rating method that most of us researchers use. Additionally, we're doing assessment quantitatively. I use an app on an iPad called Field Scout. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
Field Scout Green Index, where you go out, you take the iPad, you take a snapshot of there. We have a grayscale index card where you kind of I don't want to say stabilize isn't the right word. Where I'm trying to think of the right word. Not stabilize, but you have to use the gray card to kind of get that that first image to kind of set the scale, I guess, for your the images you'll be taking of your turf after that. And then you take a different card, which has a green and yellow and gray part of that gray card. You take your iPad, you take an image of your turf, and it kind of scales that image to take dark green color index values, which are numerical values indicative of, I guess, the quality of green color in your turf. So like the higher value of that numerical value, the better. And then it also does quantitative visual ratings. So that will be, again, on a 1 to 9 scale. It gives you that number. So I do these every 2 weeks, a little bit more than that kind of once a month quality ratings. And what's really nice about these quantitative ratings that I'm able to do with utilizing an iPad is it reinforces what we see with our eyes. So you can only do so much by going out and doing turf grass quality ratings, I like to say. I might go out, see a stand of turf and say, hey, I give that a 7. But someone else may go out and say, oh, that's a 5. So I think that really makes it difficult with qualitative type of data to keep it consistent. And it's something that I've really worked on with this study to bring in that quantitative data to kind of really reinforce what we're seeing qualitatively. And it does. I can say it definitely does. Even with the quantitative quality ratings, the dark green color index, we have 2 years of data on that for this study. And this would be the 3rd year of data collection. So we have seen kind of the similar trends across all years and I guess data collection dates in the study. And I can kind of go into more detail if you'd like on that type of data. I can talk about other types. It's really whatever you want to hear, I guess.
No, I mean the pictures are 1,000 words, and I think
Yeah.
what if you could bring up a couple of your slides of the actual numbers and the reduced fertility and what you've seen in your reports of, I mean, it all makes total sense on just dealing with proper mow height and not stressing the plant on that is the number one factor that we should be working with a partner with. If there is a
Yes.
turf maintenance company and you're the manager of that turf, really becoming a partner with that so that you can understand or the customer can understand they're going to get the best results from a partnership in this.
Yeah, sure. So kind of looking at, I guess, the dark green color index data and the turfgrass quality ratings and all those kind of types of data assessment and what they can tell us with things such as reduced fertility inputs. Because again, as a turfgrass manager, you don't want to be putting out excess fertility. It's not sustainable. Why put more out? It's not going to save you resources in the long run. And again, money is a big thing as well. So what I guess is the right amount to put out is something that we've kind of looked at in this study as well. That's why we have these three different fertility levels. And looking at the dark green color index data and the turfgrass quality ratings. So year one, which was 2023 when we started collecting that data, and then 2024, which is again some of the data I shared at the conference in which we met. We can see that at our no fertility level, there's not necessarily any significant differences if you're mowing autonomously or you're mowing conventionally with turfgrass quality or dark green color index. But when you move to that 2 pounds of fertility, so our low fertility, or that high fertility, which is that 4 pounds per year, we can see that I would say the majority of the dates over 2 years of data collection, there's higher turfgrass quality and dark green color index of both autonomous mowing regimes compared to the conventional. And even in some cases, we are seeing higher quality of the autonomous mowers at the low fertility compared to the conventional at the high fertility. So what I really like to say as a turfgrass manager, maybe autonomous mowing is one of those tools in your toolbox that you say could utilize and possibly has the potential to cut your fertility in half and see that same quality, see that same dark green color. So looking at it from that aspect, I think has been really something positive and encouraging. I think one of the most exciting results actually from, and it's 2 years of that consistent data collection, just seeing those nice trends kind of laid out in a graph.
So let me ask you this, and I think you touched upon it at the conference, but
Sure.
so we go into a low fertility plot, and then we go into, let's say, the more traditional fertility plot.
Yes.
And most of that is going to be all synthetic sources, I'm sure.
Yes.
How and what did you see for disease factors throughout the summer? So let's go low fertility. Some things that we're typically going to see are going to be dollar spot if that's going to roll in at the 2 pounds per thousand for the year. And then we go into the higher end, and then we have to worry about brown patch. And,
Yes.
unless you're dealing with a new stand of grass, you're probably not seeing Pythium, especially in a controlled environment. But some of those more prevalent summer diseases with a higher fed, what are you seeing at that lower level of nutrient and then proper cut? Are you still seeing diseases along the way, less of them, or not at all?
Yeah, sure. So I'm excited to talk about disease. We can start
I'm
with, I
not.
want to start with
I
brown.
hate that word. It's so complicated in the turf. I'm just
Oh,
calling
I
you from
know,
now
I
on.
know. We can start with brown patch just because this study right here is all tall fescue, and as we all know, brown patch is one of those diseases that hits tall fescue pretty bad, and fertility does play a factor into that. So we have brown patch data from all the way back in 2022. I think we got some data last year in 2024, so we're doing ratings on them, and then I am actually going to inoculate this study with brown patch just next month. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully,
Really?
because I think having, the more the data, the better, really. And
So,
having,
so when you say you're going to inoculate that,
yes.
how does one do such a thing?
So I have never done it before. So this is me being completely transparent, in
But that's
saying that I'm going
research.
to,
I mean,
yeah,
that's research.
exactly. So to say we're going to inoculate the study is so basically inoculation is you take a disease, you put it out in the field, and you let it sit there, let it spread because you want the disease kind of to be out there just for research purposes to
Yeah.
get a rating, see differences. The inoculum is prepared in a lab. Again, I'm no expert on disease. I leave that to my advisory committee. who are helping me kind of prepare the inoculum, go through the process in the lab. Dr. Ingrajado, who is also a researcher at UConn, expert in disease, is helping me do that. So I'm kind of excited to be able to kind of pull on that different advice and expertise to kind of complete this part of the study. But yeah, we're going to take that inoculum, transport it out into the field. It's a very small amount that you have to prepare in the lab, I believe. Put it out in the field and then kind of let the disease sit there in the right conditions. So we don't have a date kind of set for that yet, because again, the
You have to
weather's
wait for
been
Mother
crazy.
Nature to give you what you need.
The weather's been crazy, and who knows when kind of those right conditions will be. We're waiting, maybe it could be late June, it could be early July when it gets humid, hot and humid. We know that's when disease kind of likes to kind of spring upon us, but that's kind of the next step, I guess, in respect to disease. But I guess kind of going back to what we've seen so far with brown patch, if you want to hear about that, I'm more than happy to share.
Yeah, because I mean, that is a killer.
Yeah.
Dollar spot, we can kind of work ourselves through that pretty. Again,
Yes.
a little more nutrition into the turf, we can kind of push that through. But when we go into some of these diseases that actually need to be treated, that's when people really need to know how they can reduce that, how they can improve,
Exactly.
so that they're actually using the right medicines at the right time too, which drives me crazy because they're typically using putting them down wrong. They're not rotating
Yep.
tracks. And so, yeah,
Doesn't work.
This is all stuff. Good stuff.
Yes, exactly. So I'll start with the first year of the study. Again, this was when I was not here. So this is the researchers before me kind of gathering this data. So just to put that out there, I didn't see it with my own eyes, this brown patch outbreak. But we don't use any fungicides on this particular field just because we want that disease to incur, because that's kind of a proponent of the study. So we don't spray any fungicides, just to kind of throw that out there. But back in 2022, they inoculated the study again with brown patch. They were able to get some percent blight ratings, and they saw significantly less brown patched in the autonomous nighttime and the autonomous daytime regimes. There wasn't necessarily any differences between daytime and nighttime, which I know is also a factor of the study that I think would be interesting to compare those two. But there was significantly more disease in the conventional areas. But I will say last year we had a naturally occurring outbreak of brown patch. We didn't inoculate last year. And there was significantly more brown patch in the conventional areas, but at the same time, to be completely transparent with this, we saw less brown patch at our higher fertility level across all regimes, which kind of contradicts what research has seen so far with, tall fescue and fertility, because sometimes we do see higher disease, especially with brown patch at higher fertility levels. So that data, again, it was a naturally occurring outbreak. The ratings we did, it could have been, how many days after the outbreak occurred. So I think really inoculating gives you that better kind of control when gathering data, as we do in research. But
so with the turf CSI that I have as an old turf manager, and you may not know this information right off the top of your head, but
Sure.
I would be more wanting to know what exactly you're using for fertility on these. So when
Yeah,
you say
sure.
when you go to the higher fertility part, if you're just using a straight, let's say 4600, just a nitrogen
Yep.
source, and you're not giving any other elements to that turf, if you are, a healthier fed turf is going to be stronger and more resistant to disease, and your timing of that nutrition going out or that nitrogen going out can also be a factor of starting a disease or not. So if you're filling the belly of the plant with your plot that had higher fertility rate throughout the season,
Yes.
and it has a more sustainable, healthy system, is going to kind of retard some of that disease compared to a struggling plot, I think, in that 2-pound
Yeah.
rate, especially if you're putting in some K at the end of building some healthy bones and in the plant itself to get through this. Just my theory. I don't know. This is all just from experience.
Well, it all goes back to maintaining that healthy stand of turf.
Yeah.
It's really helpful in preventing diseases. But for this study, we're using, so say at the 4-pound level, we're doing half of straight urea and then half of polycoated urea. So we have some that slow release and some more that quick release. So it's a half and half mix. Yeah,
And it's just a nitrogen source?
just nitrogen. We don't have any
Got it.
phosphorus or potassium out there, just nitrogen
Okay.
for this study. Yep.
That's exactly what I needed to know. So that it just
Yeah.
again shows and walking that balance of what is the proper fertility rate of a program for cool season in our area. And I think, and you probably can back this up, that I think every season is going to be a little different.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
And I know a lot of guys out there that are just going to hit high every year, and their
Yeah.
lawns are they look pretty good.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they'll get some struggles here and there, but is it always the right thing to do? And also, is it the
Yeah.
environmental thing? And there's many states around us that are doing reductions in nitrogen levels that are being allowed to be put out as well. New Jersey's
Oh,
one of them. They keep
yeah.
retarding that level, and we're due. I mean, Connecticut,
Yeah.
we've we have a tough deep, and I'm happy with that they
Mhm.
take good care of our soils and the people putting those products out there.
Yes.
But I'm actually shocked that they have not put in some restrictions yet. And I've had my license for I don't know how many years. It's
Yes.
amazing.
No,
It's
I know,
coming. It's
exactly.
coming.
No, and I'm too a big advocate of, every season is different. Again, going back to that, so you kind of have to really assess that particular circumstance. But also, I'm a big, advocate of not putting out more than you need. If you don't need to kind of over fertilize, then you really shouldn't be doing that. Even if there isn't regulations in place, which, they are, I think, coming,
Yeah.
to Connecticut and with anything, I know, at least in this industry, is like things are changing. I mean, whether we like it or not, with it, either maybe the regulation of even gasoline powered equipment, it's something that may be coming. So just kind of looking at these alternatives, like autonomous mowers that
Mhm.
are not gasoline powered, is just, it's an option. And I think kind of looking to the next step is always a good thing.
And then I'll try to give you a little business sense of it since you're in school and
Yeah.
going to be looking to go out there. But what a lot of people don't understand is these products and nutrients that we put out there is a traded commodity. So it's in a very volatile, fluctuating market, especially during economic times such as now and election years. And it had nothing to do with whatever president was running.
Hmm.
It's just typical of a commodities market to try to take advantage of it. And
Yes.
our product is also 100% agricultural driven. So depending on the ag market crop of last year, what futures they've purchased for this year is dependent on our price. So like when you said going back and just using really what you need to use really can make a huge financial gain or reduction in your profit for the year if you're just
Yes.
going out there and just running what you've run and not educating yourself on what needs to be done.
Yes, exactly. And keeping those inputs, at a sustainable level. You want to feed the plants, keep them healthy, but not
Right.
not overdoing it at the same time. Exactly.
That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So, in closing, because I don't want to keep this too long, I definitely I hope we can have you back on because I
Yeah,
have
of
a
course. I'd be
million
more than willing.
topics, not even about autonomous mowing, but I'm excited as your research continues that we'll have access to more and more pictures that we can continue to post and
Of course.
videos and anything. I'm excited of this inoculation thing. I mean, as
Yeah.
nerdy as it sounds, this is this is great research that we as turf managers need to have in front of us. Really do. I mean, this is very cutting edge. You're way above your time of what we need out here, which is great because when we go into the autonomous mowers, you're bringing in the piece of really focusing on maintaining turf at almost a stress-free level. And it's
Yes.
no different than human health. You know, when we are not stressed, we can ward off all these great colds and
Diseases. Yeah.
very easily. And it's a direct correlation. There's no different between turf, grass, and us. You know, we have our
Yes.
three macros that we need, our fats,
Yeah.
carbohydrates, and proteins, and grass has their three macros that we put in a bag on their lawn. So
Yeah.
there's the cellular. You're the educated one. I'm not. I just do this out of passion and hobby, but I've seen the direct correlation in it. And when we can reduce stress on our turf,
Yes.
everything else will be so much better. And
Exactly.
less of it. So that's what just drew me into this autonomous mowing thing. I just saw the
Yeah.
results on those three customers' lawns, and it was just that no change was done whatsoever other than
Yeah.
mowing. That's all.
No, and I think it's great to really go out there and see things and then be able to go back and connect research and real data to it because I think that that's game changing, really.
Well,
And
and again, I said it earlier, and you said it during the presentation. I saw that when you're going out with inputs, you're putting scientific, specific inputs in a predetermined area at a
yep.
predetermined time that is calculated and written down. We're just making changes because we think we're doing the right thing, and most of the time we are. I'm not
Yeah.
kicking ourselves down, but our data a lot of times is it's not nearly as accurate. So you have proof behind what you're doing. We have
Yes.
results. Results are good, but proof is proof.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I,
And I can kind of, before, I obviously won't keep you for too long either. I could
no,
talk about this all day. But just
it's
to give
great.
a little bit more insight, I guess, on the next steps for this study, just because I think this might be the last year of me wrapping it up after, I will be graduating next May. And I'm looking more not only just at the dark green color index and the turf grass quality, those, simple more measurements that we talked about, but really digging deeper into that plant health, see, where you're seeing these changes that are occurring quality or dark green color, but really asking further, why are they occurring? So this past fall, actually, I took tissue samples. And it's something that I will continue to do throughout this
Oh.
summer. Again, it's not cheap, so I don't advise anyone to go out and take tissue samples.
So you're
Um,
talking like a sap test?
yeah, so what we do is we go out and we use a mower. We have kind of a collection bag that is kind of attached. It's just a simple kind of cheesecloth material, I guess is the best way to describe it. We pause all of the mowers for that day. We collect a quart-sized bag of tissue clippings, and then we send it into a lab. We use Dairy One Laboratory, I believe it's in New York, and they run all sorts of tests on it. Some things, just for example, they look at percent moisture in those clippings that you sent. They can look at nitrogen. They can look at total non-structural carbohydrates and dry matter. So it gives us this whole kind of array, depending on what you're looking for, of things that you can investigate. And maybe there's differences in, hey, why does this area maybe have higher nitrogen, or why does it have more moisture? And again, this is only one data collection date. So, as researchers, we do like to see more. So I will be transparent about that. But with that one data collection date, I saw higher percent moisture in the data that we received back in the autonomous areas. So that was a little bit exciting, I guess, as a researcher. So again, I'm hoping to see maybe the consistent results when we collect samples this season, but definitely stay tuned for that because I'm kind of excited to dive deeper into the actual plant itself and not just those visual assessments.
So now I'm going to put this on you.
Sure.
What would the next topic that you would really like to talk about on here be for our next episode?
So yeah, I would love to come back. I mean, thank you for having me.
Oh
I
no, I
mean,
can't wait.
I
I'm
could talk
excited.
about this for days. I could talk about really anything
We
that I
need
guess
this.
anyone is interested in. But so I guess looking at this picture here that I have pulled up, you can see we have our three areas that I just talked about. But I'm going to try to go back real quick through these slides. These are just some pictures that, if you're listening on YouTube or watching, they're just nice pictures to share. I like to share with everyone.
There's the
Let me
mower.
just do this. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I could definitely come back on another episode. So what we touched on today is just one of the studies I have going on at the research farm.
Oh,
We actually have a completely other study, which is this drone shot right here. There's on the bottom, it's a little bit cut out. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 research areas, 6 different mowing regimes, which consist of different heights of cut with autonomous mowers, and then different species. So we're looking at the differences between mowing regime, which is conventional, and autonomous. And then we're looking at differences in height of cut. So does that height of cut recommendation change if you're using autonomous mower or mowing every day versus conventional? And then looking at different cool season grass species,
there
because in
you
the
go.
old study, just tall fescue, but in this we have tall fescue, we have fine fescue, perennial ryegrass, Kentucky bluegrass. So there's a
That's
lot.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's where my gears have been turning, just
Yeah.
understanding where you've been, and now you say you have a second piece in research.
Yes.
I think we are confused as an industry in the cool season grass area of what stands of grass do well, and
Yes.
re- will not need as much inputs, will be helpful in retarding some diseases, less water. So I'm going to say it now. Our next episode is going to be you and your data of all the different species that you're incorporating in these other
Sure.
plots. Because I know I'm confused. I've changed so many different times, and I
Yeah.
can remember what was standard 10 and 15 years ago of all our fine fescues, creeping red, chewing, all that stuff would go in there. And now, like, oh, don't, it's all turf type tall fescue. Don't put anything else in there. And then we're
Yeah.
over to here. Now, no, we got to blend in some blue with it, and we got to put in some tall fescue and some perennial rye.
Yeah.
It's just, is it what the salesman wants to sell you this year? What the crops were good? I want to see your data because you're going to proven data.
Yes.
So yes, this is going to
And
be
and that's what I
awesome.
want to do with this project is hopefully, when I conclude, have those recommendations, have
Yeah,
them nicely put out, published, for you professionals to use. So I'm definitely more than happy to share that. And
that's great. Yeah,
I got, yes, there's a second study.
definitely need that. So
Great.
how would people be able to reach out to you if you want them to? I know you're busy and student,
Sure.
and but if they do have some questions, I'm sure they're going to want to talk to you and not to me, by all
Yeah,
means.
of course. Yeah, people feel free to reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Again, I am pretty busy. I am a student, but I am great at responding to emails. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. As you may know, I like to
Mhm.
keep my posts up to date, sharing things throughout the summer, especially since I'm out in the field. So message me on LinkedIn. I'm sure you can share that as well as my
Yep,
email.
I'll have all your contact
Yes.
information. I just wanted to check with you if you're okay
Yeah,
with
of
your email
course.
and your LinkedIn contact in there. And
Yes.
Tessa is very responsive. Like I said, we met in the wintertime, but I messaged her through LinkedIn and boom, gone from
Yes.
there. And it took us a while to put this together because of some other situations going on, but she's extremely responsive to any communications. And now that we know where you're going in this project, yeah, there's a lot of topics we can
Of
pick your brain with,
course.
which we need help with. We really
Yeah.
do. We think we know what we're doing, and because we have experience, which we do. We have that in-depth part of it, but now when you having clinical data is so important to saving us time, saving us money and frustrations, which is going to be awesome.
Yeah, of course. And that's what I'm here for. I encourage people to reach out
Great.
with questions, even just if you want to chat, insights you have. Again, I'm transparent. I'm a student. So this is a learning process for me as well. So, really, anyone reaching out with anything they want to talk about, whether it be this autonomous study, other research ideas, what they've seen in the field, I'm really open to it. So, I do encourage people to reach out.
Awesome. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so excited to continue on with these conversations and helping educate us. I hope I didn't take too much of your time today, but
No, you
again,
definitely not.
and for having the smarts to figure out how to put these things on the screen so people will be able to see this. And I promise you, next episode, she'll have her screen running right from the get go and we'll have even
Oh,
more slides
yes.
for you. But Tessa Hospod from University of Connecticut, right?
Yes.
We are so happy to have you in our side of the green industry. You know, a lot of times we kind of shunned away from some of these events just because the data can get, no pun intended, lost in the weeds above our
Oh,
heads, kind of
yeah.
don't really understand it. And you're really nuts and bolts, which is super important to us. And it makes it easy to understand. And that's what, when you and Jason were up there, it was a
Mhm.
presentation that was very easy to understand what you wanted to get across. And I think you had everyone's attention very well. And it hooked me into this, and it kind of just gave me an affirmation of kind of the directions that I want to continue going. And so I thank you for that.
Of
And
course.
I look forward to our next meeting.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, you have
Thank you
yourself a
for
great
having
day.
me.
Oh, it's our
You
pleasure.
too.
All right.
Bye-bye.